Hi everyone, welcome to the final lecture of What is the Meaning of Life, and also the final lecture of How Should I Live? So today we're going to be looking at subjective accounts of meaningfulness in life. Now to start off, I want to start with a wee video. I'll also post a link to this in case there's any recording mishaps. Start off with this.
When one seeks great truths in life and one tries to elevate one's vision to high plateaus of greatness, one expects a noble trajectory.
It's sort of like Everest. You knew it could be climbed.
It's there, and so it has to be done.
Only one person will be remembered as being the guy that did it first.
Points are free, quarters are hard to come by.
It was the only game in the golden age that set this scoring benchmark of 1 billion points.
But a little back-of-the-envelope calculation shows that you're going to be playing for 2 days.
By the time he reached his 1 billion points, Tim McVeigh had logged 44.5 hours of non-stop play on one quarter.
It's absolutely insane to sit at a video game that long. I mean, this is real, like, kind of epic, mythic attempts. You get this 1 billion points.
You can't believe it even after you see it. The way it was Tim McVeigh plays this nibbler game, guiding the slithering snake and racking up the points.
He did that. He got 1 billion points on Nibbler. What the fuck is Nibbler?
Nibbler is a snake that's going through a maze.
The sound of Nibbler makes you want to be anywhere but in front of it.
It's fun to play for the first 20 minutes, and then it's not so fun.
It's Nibbler, it's a horrible game. The guy who got 1 billion points is Tim McVeigh. Wait a second. It's a different Tim McVeigh, totally nice guy. Not a terrorist.
If somebody ever had everyday, ordinary farm town boy tattooed on his head, that was Timmy.
You didn't have to be in a big city. You could be anywhere and be the best.
Tim had an energy to him. He had a magic that made him say, I want to be a superstar.
And on Tim McVeigh Day in Ottumwa Saturday, this self-proclaimed video game capital honored its hometown whiz with a key to the city and the keys to a nibbler game of his very own.
Ha battuto il punteggio mondiale.
È di un americano.
Sì, un certo McVeigh.
1 miliardo e 1 milione di punti hai fatto.
Sì.
Incredibile, incredibile.
I'm Enrico Zanetti from Italy. I broke the Nibbler record that occurred 25 years ago.
Apparently somebody had beat my record, so that little voice in my head says, you gotta beat this back.
Invidia, uno dei 7 peccati capitali.
Envious.
Tim wants to make sure there's no shadow of a doubt on his accomplishment, that he is Mr. Nibbler.
At first I thought he was kind of crazy when he said, I want to go for this record again.
It's going to be a tough thing for him to do.
I don't know if it's realistic for Tim. I wish him good luck on it.
I gotta get used to standing, I gotta get used to setting, I gotta get used to not sleeping, planning my bathroom breaks. I think it's gonna be like riding a bike. I don't think there's a player in the world that could possibly beat me on it.
Who's the best player? I am. Am I making this shit up? No. Is this the way we do things around here? Yeah. You're out of line, you fucking cocksucker.
His name, Dwayne Richard. They called him the Kid, and he was the best.
People recognize me as the best all-around classic game player from both back in the 80s and currently.
Dwayne Hart is a classic arcade gamer. He is a competitor that you do not want to face in a competition.
I'm gonna go for 1 billion because I want to see what it looks like.
I'll state this publicly, okay? This is my record. Nibbler's my game.
People think I come to kill him, and I would. Classic Repo Man line.
Wow, these guys are serious about their video game scores.
1 quarter, 1 credit, 1 game.
1 billion points is like a Tour de France. They got to be mentally very tough, very determined, and have the physical stamina.
This is non-stop play where the game is challenging in every single moment.
Just the way the pacing goes, death is inevitable.
I'm tired of people talking shit about marathoners. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Nibbler's a harsh mistress. You can't begin to predict what's going to happen. It's not as if it's easy. It isn't fucking easy. It's fucking hard.
It's tough. It's very, 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 very tough.
It's got to be tough to be a world-class athlete.
Most people see their opportunities elsewhere. Well, Tim sees his on a video game console from 1982.
I said I was never doing it again 25 years ago, though, and so how stupid am I?
The fact that he did it once doesn't guarantee you'll be able to do it again.
I'm not sure if I can take it, man. I'll definitely try.
In the movies, it looks so easy.
Suck it up!
What do you think I'm doing?
He's got a bigger nose!
proud of him. Not a lot of people have done this. So I'm proud.
Yeah, that's cool. They'll remember me forever. What's Nibbler? What's Nibbler? What's Nibbler? What's... God, I'm sick of that question.
When I get past this, better go away. So that was the very long trailer of a very interesting documentary about a guy called Tim McVeigh. Tim McVeigh is not to be confused with the Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh. They're different people, as they note in the trailer. So Tim McVeigh sets out to beat, well, he was originally a world record holder of this arcade game, this very bad arcade game from the sound of it. And then someone beat his record they didn't know about, and then he wants to go back and do it. He almost feels like it's his life work, is to go and beat this record. So we've been talking a lot about meaningful lives and worthwhile activities and things like that. And you might wonder, well, is Tim McVeigh's life meaningful? Even if we just focus on his attempt to become the world record holder on Nibbler once again, is that a meaningful pursuit? Is that a worthwhile activity? And as a result, does that make his life meaningful? You might worry here that really this is quite a pointless, futile thing, and that, what's the point of any of this? Like, it's a really bad game. It's not like building the pyramids or painting a beautiful artwork or getting the world record marathon, 100-meter marathon sprint. It's just it's just a really silly computer game. So you're the world record holder, so what? I think many people might feel this way. Like, it seems pointless or futile to do this kind of thing, completely worthless. Even if you'll be remembered forever, like, what's the point? That seems to be quite obvious to some people. I mean, I suspect people like Susan Wolf would say, well, of course this is pointless. He should have just done something else. And so you might worry that, maybe the thought here with people like Wolf is that he's not that different from Sisyphus. So in Greek legend, Sisyphus was condemned to roll a boulder up the hill for eternity. He'd done something against the gods. I don't remember what. But he has this, you've probably seen this image of the person rolling the boulder up the hill, and it rolls back down, and he sort of roll it back up, so on and so forth. This is often touted as a paradigm meaningless life. Now, some people consider an example, a version of this, which is a version of where Sisyphus feels fulfilled by doing what he's doing. And so Susan Wolf's book on meaning in life, as well as in the article by Richard Rowlands, and also the article by Richard Taylor, they imagine a version of Sisyphus where Sisyphus feels fulfilled by what he does. Sure, he has to roll that bowl up a hill for eternity, but so what? He loves doing that. He's like really engaged. He really feels great. All he cares about, all he wants in life is to roll a boulder up the hill and keep doing it. So he's having, like, for him, from his perspective, perfect life. Many people take this to be a clear case of a paradigm meaningless life. It's completely pointless. There's no point to rolling a boulder up the hill. You might worry that Tim McVeigh is like Sisyphus fulfilled. I mean, one important difference is that, Tim actually chooses his pursuit, whereas Sisyphus doesn't. But I mean, this highlights the relevance of free will to meaningfulness, but I don't think in what follows it's going to be much of a difference. So what that Tim chooses it is still a pointless or worthwhile pursuit. And that's how many people like Wolf, probably Kaufman, probably others would see it. What's the point? There's nothing admirable about that. It doesn't do anything for others. So it seems. So in the final lecture, we are going to be focused on considering various subjective views about meaningfulness in life. But in the course of this, I'm going to try and defend a form of subjectivism, or at least defend subjectivism in general, to argue that, Tim McVeigh's life is meaningful. And because it's a subjectivist claim, it's going to be meaningful to him at least. And that's what's going to matter, that he finds his life to be meaningful. So in becoming the world record holder, so I don't want to make any spoilers of the documentary because I highly recommend watching it because I think it's great. If Tim McVeigh becomes the world record holder of Nibbler again, will he have a meaningful life? I'm going to argue yes. He's going to get that fulfillment. He's going to feel great. He's going to get what he desires. He's going to engage in an activity that to him is worthwhile and passionate, and it's all that's going to matter to meaningfulness, I'm going to argue, is for him. So unlike other lectures where I might have been less opinionated, and less trying to take a position, I'm going to try and take a position. You might not agree with me, but that's fine. If you see problems in my arguments or gaps in the argument, there certainly will be gaps because there's not enough time to fill those gaps, and maybe I haven't thought about how to fill those gaps. Think about those, think about problems, try and find ways in which what I'm saying is mistaken or wrong. Try and build up your own argument, build up your own position. Maybe you're thinking of maybe you've got a better version of subjectivism. Regardless, philosophy is often about critical evaluation. So I think it's very important for you to see someone try to convince you of something. And if you're convinced, try and imagine what somebody who's not convinced would think. What problems would they find? Try and argue for the opposing position and see if there's any problems. Because that's often one of the really helpful ways to critically evaluate a position you like, is just to imagine what an opponent of that position would say. So I first want to remind you of some worries about objectivism. This is not a complete list. We've gone through some that are not here, but just ones I want to raise here. And then in the second part of the lecture, we'll consider 3 forms of subjectivism. The general objection that's been given to subjectivism so far. So one worry we discussed is that meaningfulness for the objectivist depends on there being objective facts about meaningfulness. But okay, if you take an objectivist view, there has to be these objective facts, but that's a very controversial view. If you end up doing meta-ethics and moral philosophy, junior honours or senior honours, maybe it's even covered at other levels of honours, you'll find that claiming there are objective values is a very controversial view. Many people hold it and think it's very intuitive, but it's very hard to substantiate, and there's lots of objections to it. That doesn't mean it's false, but you've got a lot of work to do. And one worry you might have is if you're pinning your hopes about meaningfulness in life on there being these objective values, then that could all come crumbling down if it's shown conclusively that there is no objective values. That's a worry, not a devastating problem, but a worry. So second one that we've covered a few times is that objectivist views all seem to rely on some notion of importance, significance, or worthwhileness that's objective. But a worry that I've mentioned in a few different ways is that death and the onslaught of time, as I'm now dramatically putting it, may undermine each of these. So if you think that some achievement is significant, maybe part of that is it's going to be remembered forever. But once you're dead, you have no way of guaranteeing that people will remember it. And you have no way of guaranteeing that people will remember it when you're alive. So time seems to destroy these memories. Given long enough time, no one's going to remember it. And then at some point, time is going to end. Time in the universe are going to end. So are these things really that significant, given that there's a point at which everything's going to go away? So I don't think it's obvious how objectivists get around these worries about death. Maybe there's something in Kaufman, Wolff, or some other objectivist that gets around this. But as far as I'm aware, there's nothing obvious. If you think there's a way to get around this problem, think about that. That's something that's worth considering, thinking about more. I would encourage you to. So a third one we haven't discussed, a third worry we haven't discussed, but it occurred to me after the lecture on death and immortality, it's not clear to me how the objectivist makes sense of disillusionment. So we had the quote from Leo Tolstoy that inspired much of the discussion in the first part of lecture 3. So people like Wolff often hold Tolstoy up as someone who had a meaningful life, but he became very disillusioned later in life. He himself found that things were meaningless and there was no point to anything. So worry there is that, okay, if you're a pure objectivist, he might still count as having a meaningful life because he engaged in objectively worthwhile pursuits, namely creating great works of literature. If you're a hybrid theorist like Wolff, it seems that Tolstoy doesn't meet the subjective component anymore, because he doesn't find what he does to be fulfilling. In fact, he finds it very unfulfilling. And because he finds it unfulfilling, it seems that that subjective component is no longer satisfied. So does that mean that Wolff's view actually says his life is no longer meaningful? That seems to be a problem. I think objectivists like Thaddeus Metz want to modify or even reject Wolff's subjective component for this kind of reason. If you're interested in his view, I would definitely recommend his book, because I think he's one of the foremost researchers on meaningfulness in life these days. So we'll stop there before moving on to part 2.